Okay. Good evening. Welcome everyone to ANC3F's February 21st, 2023 public meeting. I'll just get us started now with the call to order, and I'll do the roll call. So if you can just say present. Commissioner Courtney Carson.
Present.
Commissioner James Tenderick.
Present.
Commissioner Ryan.
CB is fine. Present.
Sorry. I need to be better at that. Commissioner Mitch Bayer.
Present.
Commissioner Terry Hewitt.
Present.
Everyone is present. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is the adoption of tonight's agenda. The only change right now for everyone is we had on the agenda UDC archive update, and they just like last minute, like recently, I think yesterday or over the weekend, asked if they could be moved to our meeting in March instead of tonight. That's the only change I have. Anyone else? So they won't be presenting tonight. Any other changes anyone has to the agenda for tonight? Can I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I second that.
I motion to approve tonight's agenda as written.
Yep, and Terry second, and all in favor say aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
And the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is approval of ANC3F minutes for January 17th, our January 17th meeting. Are there any suggested changes to the meeting minutes for last month?
Great job, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Seeing
can I
was
get a
gonna say,
motion?
good job. I moved to approve minutes from last month.
Okay, any second?
I second.
Second.
And thank you, Ryan.
Sure thing.
Yes. Okay, Ryan seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and the motion passes. Approval of, so there were adjustments to the ANC3F 2023 budget. I sent them around to you all just to add 18,000 for personnel, to include like a communications person, because we do have an admin person who is who works really well with us. She does a lot with the budget, and with doing as much as she can with updating what we've got on our website, but we do need a lot of help with updating our website, doing things on getting updates on social media, and all other forms of communicating, like public facing information to the community, because it becomes a lot for one of us to try to take that on. And so I added that to as an item that we didn't have when we approved. The last group had done a budget for 2023, and it didn't include an item for a communications person, so additional personnel. Were there any other adjustments or any comments regarding that?
Just wanted to make sure that we haven't set out how we're going to be going about hiring someone for this. This is just to amend the budget so that we can have this at our, just have it available.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we did start on a process last year, but like didn't get anywhere with that. So I do have a position description available. But we definitely wanted to try to get someone to, and then, we wanted someone to move our, to move the host for the website as well. So that would be that person who could make that happen too. Is there any other discussion about adjustments to the 2023 budget, ANC3F 2023 budget?
I have none.
Can I get a motion to approve the budget adjustment?
I motion to approve the budget as adjusted.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Terry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, and the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is commissioner update. And I will start again with the order that I started before. I'll start with Commissioner Courtney Carlson.
Hello, everybody. I'm actually going to follow up on what I said last month, which is we were excited about the opening of Call Your Mother on the great block of Connecticut Avenue between Nebraska and Fessenden. And Call Your Mother has opened and added additional vibrancy to that great, wonderful block. And I hope everyone will go and try it. They've been wonderful neighbors so far, and I think they'll continue to be. I like to update about food when I possibly can.
Thank you, Commissioner Carlson. Commissioner Tanderi.
The only update I have is that, so I was approached by a neighbor actually in December about the idea of starting a composting, sort of like a composting initiative within ANC3F. I am trying to gather interest. So if you are someone that's interested in knowing more about this process, I will admit I do not know much about composting and how that would work within ANC3F. But if you're interested in learning more or want to get involved with it, please let me know. I'm trying to gather if there's enough interest in the community. So that way it's something that I would further initiate. So just let me know. You can just message me privately on here on the Zoom call.
Hooray for compost, says the person who also likes food. I like food through all of its places. I would love to help you. And we also have a great composting when the Van Ness Farmers Market is open. They collect the DC government collects compost there.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Tanderi. Commissioner Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. So I just have something of note from the International Dark Sky Association. They've requested that our commission support a Lights Out Hour DC. It's an event that's planned to go on on March 25th from 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., where they will encourage everyone to turn off all non-essential lights for that night in support, or rather, I guess, against light pollution. So we may be taking that up as a resolution on our next meeting, but not tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Mitch.
Yeah, I have one update. I was approached by the Embassy of the Netherlands. They're going to be filing an application. Actually, they have already filed a zoning application to replace their parking garage. We've talked, and I'm going to schedule them to make a presentation to the ANC in March and put together a resolution for the ANC, either following that presentation in March or in April, based on the discussion in the March meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Terry Hewitt.
Good evening. I think what I have is that the Housing Committee, I was trying to think of the proper word, will be meeting. I had hoped to get this plan tonight. I just had some other work to deal with, either March 1st or March 8th, and I'll have that solidified later tonight or this morning, tomorrow morning. But we will be meeting the Housing Committee, and I've reached out to all of the apartment property managers
Okay,
so that we can go.
okay. Thank you, Commissioner Terry Hewitt. And then I just want to let everyone know that soon, each one of us in our own SMD will do our own town hall regarding just issues, just having discussions about issues within our own SMD, and everyone would do it differently. Some people will do something in person, some people will do something via Zoom. We also recently had a community walk that included MPD, Communications Unified Office. They handle 311, 911, the Office of Public Safety. We had a couple people from staff members from Councilman Fruman's office. That's all that I can think of that were there. We didn't get too far, so we started at UDC, ended at like Starbucks. But we had a really good discussion. What happened is we had really good discussions on when do you call 911, when do you call 311, when do you what can MPD actually do in situations where people feel like MPD can resolve issues. And a big takeaway was, if an event has already occurred, no one is still there, call 311. MPD, they come into play as something is happening. But once it's no longer happening, call 311. We had really good discussions on being able to control anything happening outside of a building, really talking about what can building managers do, because a lot of things is some things that we can try to work with building managers and implementing to help with community issues that start to spew out into the neighborhood, can be controlled from just the building management, being able to implement some rules and regulations. Anything else I'm missing? I feel like
I would add only, you covered almost 95% of it. I would add the behavioral services.
Yes.
The division was present, as well as public safety. I believe I may be.
The Deputy Mayor for Public Safety.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I mentioned.
And
Her
Yeah.
office, her rep, yeah.
and
Right.
Office of Behavioral Services, if I remember correctly, was present. But also what MPD said was, if you have doubt, if you know something's happened, but you're not certain what to do, to still call. Even if there's a bit of a, it's better to be safe than sorry, if you think something's going on.
Thank you for that. And then moving on to the next item of the agenda is committee reports. So I see Paul Harrison from Streets and Sidewalks.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chair David. So a small group of us met after a couple months off. So the first thing is we're looking forward to reinvigorating the committee, and Commissioner Carlson had, who is our commissioner rep, had the great idea of doing some outdoor walking events. As you all probably know, the initial focus of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee was to evaluate and resolve sidewalk gaps and repair problems. So we're hoping either the first or second weekend of March to get folks out and walk through some of those places, and with a focus on trying to ask DDOT to bring in some of the non-capital solutions that they can put in play. We've had trouble with getting sidewalks, particularly sidewalk gaps, fixed because they are big, expensive capital projects, and there are only 6 or 7 of them a year that are done in the city. So we want to get them to focus on what they can do with paint and cones and asphalt and some of the other things that they have much more readily accessible to them. So hope folks will look out for that. And if anyone's interested in that or joining the committee's work, I will drop my email in the chat box after this. Just want to note, we're super excited about the discussion of the Earth Hour resolution. Love if we can get the commission's support on that. There is some additional work happening in other ANCs, particularly ANC4B, around pedestrian safety issues and getting DDOT really to treat that the same way that it does potholes and sort of more car-focused issues. So we hope to be bringing some of those to the commission in a more piecemeal way so we can talk about them and get support out there for them. Lastly, we're looking forward to the update next meeting from DDOT on the Connecticut Avenue Safety Study. Just one issue for the commission on that. It has been suggested that we ask DDOT to integrate the work that was done with the Van Ness Streetscape study with the Connecticut Avenue Safety Study. The Connecticut Avenue Safety Study basically looks at the street from curb to curb, and the Streetscape study looks at it from the curbs to the private property lines in the commercial district. So they really should be integrating these, particularly as they look at where trees should be placed, where bus stops should be, other pedestrian infrastructure. So we want to really ask DDOT to treat those as one set of work because the street really for all of us is the entire thing. So I'd ask that the commission consider doing something on that.
Thank you. Is there an upcoming meeting?
Yes, we will be scheduling, we're going back to our second Wednesday of the month meetings, although we will be getting out an announcement on this public meeting, which we hope to do on a weekend, noting that lots of folks can't do evenings.
Yeah. Okay.
So we did manage to get it in the ANC online calendar this time. So please, we're going to make an effort to do that. So please feel free to look at that for information on how you can participate.
Thank you. Any questions?
We'll try and have bagels, guys.
Yes.
We'll look at sidewalks, have bagels. It'll be a great, pick up some trash. It's going to be fun.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions from the community? Okay, thank you, Paul. Thanks for that. Now we're moving on to Parks and Watershed Committee, which is Mitch taking the lead on that.
Okay, one thing I want to report on and commend Marlene Berlin and the Forest Hills Connection article that she wrote on E. coli concentrations in the stream waters here in the district. Park Service has known for quite a while that there's a lot of E. coli and lots of bad things in the waters going into Rock Creek Park. And they have not been very responsive to the community asking for signs put up to warn the community on both using water from those streams and also going into those streams. I thought that the article is one that I commend to everyone's reading on the monitoring that's been done on several parts of the watershed. And for next month's meeting, I'm going to have a resolution for the ANC to consider to encourage the Park Service to put up more signs about the problems with E. coli and other bad chemicals in the surface waters in Rock Creek Park, and also ask the ANC to approve some money to put up some signs if the Park Service is not timely in putting those warning signs up.
Okay, and then you had some things that you're doing in your SMD, right, with DC Water? Some
Yeah,
trainings or something?
well, you mean with regard to the soapstone?
Yes,
development?
yeah.
Well, I can report on that now. There'll be a presentation by DC Water later in the program. So I thought I might just bring everyone up to speed on it right before they do that
Okay,
presentation. if you wish.
okay. Okay. Thank you, Mitch. Any questions from the community, comments? Okay, seeing none, moving on to, oh, I'm sorry. Quick question, is there a meeting? Do you have an upcoming Parks and Watershed meeting that people can attend?
I'm going to plan one for either March or April.
Okay, thank you. And we'll get it on the website too. Moving on to the next committee is schools and universities, which is Commissioner James Tenderick leading that.
Yeah. So a couple things. So one of our members is trying to really get really trying to get like understanding of what's up with like the retail, lots of like retail spaces in UDC. So he reached out to some of the management there, sort of get update on what's happening with the two. Probably like Juanita will address it as well. About just like updates on like properties and everything and the vacancies. I had a meeting with the school of Merch, which is the private school. It's like a block from like my apartments. Just like updates on how they're doing and everything. Especially like the shooting and everything that happened there last year.
You mean
as
Burke?
well
I
just
think you mean Burke.
Burke,
James.
sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, I always get
Sorry.
those two mixed up. It's okay, Burke.
I'm in Burke.
Yeah, so Burke. So I met up with officials from that school as well. And then I am planning to have meetings with Howard Law, fortunately, as well as fortunately me and Commissioner Kademus Bernoulli with the Sheridan School, because they're going to do some work on that school building. And so we were invited to have a meeting with them and some of their reps, I believe next week actually. So just lots of stuff happening. We have our meeting every fourth Tuesday of the month, so it's going to be a week from today. If you're interested in joining, just please message me on here and I will get you set up for our next meeting.
Any questions, comments from the community? If you can get the meeting on the calendar too, that would be great. Thank you, Commissioner James Tenderick. And then moving on to the next committee is the Committee on Housing and Neighborhoods, and that's Terry leading that, Commissioner Terry Hewitt leading that.
Hi. As I mentioned earlier, I guess a little earlier than I needed to. That meeting will either occur March 1st or March 8th. I am in the process of inviting the appropriate offices, and we'll update you as that process moves forward. The point of the meeting is to bring together property managers to discuss what needs and issues they are facing from their perspective, from their purview. And those that I've fortunately been able to speak to, which are almost all, they embraced and received the concept graciously, and they seem very interested in being able to collaborate and just hear how to communicate with the various DC offices that many had no idea previously how to do so. So this is really nice, a line of communication. So as this progresses, I'll provide more updates.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions?
Yep, any questions, comments from the community? Seeing none, I will move on to the next. Thank you, Commissioner Terry Hewitt. Moving on to the next item of the agenda is the community forum. So I will call out our regulars first, and then we'll go into you know, have anyone else with any other updates. So I want to start with UDC.
Thank you, Commissioner David. So only 3 things. The university has our performance oversight hearing on Monday, the 27th at 2 p.m. They are online, so if anyone wants to watch, please feel free. And then secondly, the Office of Zoning did approve our request to amend the campus master plan for the tennis court lights. So they did approve the lights to be on or to be used until 8 p.m. So that has been done. And then to address Commissioner Tanderik's comment about the resale space. So we've had a lot of interest from a lot of different companies, organizations. President Mason spoke about it. I think the last time he spoke to the ANC. The trouble that we are finding and running into with a lot of orgs and companies, why they won't rent there, is because any renovation that has to be done, the company has to front that up front. The university can't do that. So a lot of companies, unfortunately, are not willing to, you know, pay the amount that it would take to renovate those spaces. So we are still actively working to fill the spaces. We work with Brailsford and Dunleavy. We have another consulting company that I can't think of them right now, that we also work with. So it is something that we actively are trying to do. We just run into these, unfortunately, people don't want to pay the upfront cost of the renovations.
Juanita, do you have a timeline for the moms?
So what's
Market?
happening with moms right now is, sorry, I'm dog sitting a very large dog and he's doing stuff. So what's happening with moms, what's taking the longest is they want to put a sign, a very large sign. You can see the very large dog, he wants to play. They want to put a very large sign on the building, and they're running into issues with the Commission of Fine Arts. They are not, for whatever reason, agreeing to the size of the sign that mom wants to put out there. So they are still actively trying to fight that.
Interesting.
That's one of the biggest holdups right now.
Is the internal, I'm sorry, is the build out done? Like, are they progressing otherwise?
They're still progressing with the build out. I haven't looked in there recently, so I'm not sure how far they've come along. I should actually go take a look soon. But really the biggest thing right now is the Commission of Fine Arts. And unfortunately, there's nothing that the university can do for them where that's concerned. And I'm actually surprised they haven't come to the ANC to see if you all could support them in that. I will mention that to our COO. So perhaps the ANC can be of benefit to them.
Let me know, Juanita, and I can help with that as well too, because this is new for me as well. I also have questions too about just like rents and like because like I know there's been like an issue just like super high rents like for like the vacant properties.
Mhm.
Is there a way in which like rents can be decreased? Like if there's a way to sort of balance out renovation costs as well too. Because I mean, to me, like it's definitely like a whole district-wide issue where just like rents as well as for properties, as well as for like these like property spaces, like are just really, really high as well. So what is the sort of like update on that? Like trying to make sure that, you know, because that's the issue too, is that like there's so many vacant spaces, right? And so I'm just trying to figure out like what is the pattern of all of this as well. I'm trying to worry if like cost is part of the issue too.
Right. So I can say that the cost that we offer is conducive to what other companies and stores are paying in the community. But I don't want to give you inaccurate information on how much that is per square footage. So what I can do is either get that information from our Vice President of Facilities and Real Estate, or I can ask him to come to the meeting next month and give that update himself, and then answer any other questions, if that would be helpful.
That'd be great. That'd be awesome. Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
Okay, let me make a note of that.
I have one more question. I'm sorry. Can you just clarify what is a performance oversight meeting and what does that mean for like the community?
Sure. So what we do, we provide the council with, I guess, the previous year's updates on basically everything happening at the university. So they get information on how much every staff member is getting paid. They get information on our budgets and what those are looking like and what we're requesting and why. They get information on enrollment and what we're doing to increase enrollment, what we've progressed at, areas that we might need to have more, do a little bit more in. We give information on any lawsuits that might be happening. Literally, we give information on everything. So I shouldn't say everything. They give us a set of questions every year that we have to answer. And we answer those questions. We give the chairman and his staff a copy of everything. And then President Mason will go on Monday to testify in front of council and answer their questions. And then really anyone can testify. So if a student wanted to testify, it's open. Now they used to do it where you could give them a list of people, but it's open. So literally anyone can go and testify on behalf of the university.
I plan to testify for about UDC stuff with the committee of the whole in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Any questions from the community or any more questions from the commissioners? And any questions from the community? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Juanita.
Thank you.
Have you got Van Ness Main Street or anyone from Van Ness Main Street? Any of our mokers on to give any updates from the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services? Anyone from Matt Fruman's office? I see a hand raised. Christian. Hey, Christian, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. I apologize for my background. I'm on my way to another community event. My name is Christian Damiana. I'm with Councilmember Matt Fruman's office. And I just have a few updates about what we've been up to in the 2 months since taking office. First, with the budget season occurring now, Councilmember Fruman has conducted robust community engagement to learn about neighbors' priorities. After a budget listening session and hearing from hundreds of residents, he crafted a budget letter containing those priorities, which he sent to Mayor Bowser last week. The budget letter focused on funding opportunities that will create a more welcoming, inclusive Ward 3 for all. That's something we're going to be talking about over the next few months, which is the idea of a Ward 3 for all, both recognizing the historic issues that have impacted Ward 3 and then making an active effort to change them by expanding economic opportunity, building more affordable housing, fully funding our schools, and through some other priorities as well. So Councilmember Fruman's future focused budget priorities are going to strengthen our community, and you can learn more about them on our website. Or if you sign up for our newsletter, we'll have more updates about that tomorrow. So I'll be sure to include that in the chat. The council member is going to continue receiving budget feedback from constituents throughout the entire process, especially during budget oversight hearings, which will be happening in the next few months, and after the budget is actually released by the mayor in mid-March. Additionally, Councilmember Fruman is working hard on a variety of pieces of legislation. Tomorrow, he's going to introduce the America 250 resolution, which will encourage the mayor to establish a commission to support planning for the 250th anniversary of the nation's founding. This is an opportunity to ensure that DC's true and complete history is highlighted during this anniversary, and not just narratives we might hear from the federal government or more conservative lawmakers on the Hill. Additionally, he's going to introduce a piece of legislation establishing a bid in Friendship Heights on Thursday. A bid business improvement district will help expand economic opportunity in the area. It's DC's 12th bid, Ward 3's first. Other than that, just please fill out our constituent services form if you need assistance with any government services or other issues. And if not, you can contact our office using our website. I'll be sure to drop all of that information in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions if you all have them. Please let me know.
Any questions from the commissioners? Thank you, Christian. Any questions from the community right now? Harry.
Yeah, I wanted to say briefly, but before I do, I want to say my videos had problems. So if my video goes out, I'll still be here and I'll just speak very briefly. I just wanted to draw to your attention the recent article in the Washington Post about housing vouchers and the fact that DCHA is severely overpaying for vouchers, apartments rented to voucher recipients. This is something that our group of tenant association presidents has been saying for about a year, and people were somewhat incredulous that this was happening. But it's proven in the Post. Post is estimating that the overpayments are about $1 billion a month. That's $12 million a year. This has been going on for 4 or 5 years. So it's a severe problem. DCHA has been denying that it overpays, and in fact told me personally that I was spreading a false narrative about these overpayments. But the Post article and the reporter got Brenda Donald to admit straight out that that is false, that they are actually had been overpaying. And also I should say that we believe that the Washington Post's estimates are extremely conservative, so the amount of the overpayment is much higher. In our neighborhood, it's about $300 for a 1-bedroom in overpayments in some buildings, not all buildings, but the downtown buildings particularly, the overpayments are quite high. And the problem with that is it provides incentives to landlords to rent preferentially to voucher recipients over non-voucher recipients. So the reason why I bring this up is just to let you know that this story is going to continue to move. I expect much more reporting from different sources on this issue. And I've spoken, as I have in the past, with Terry Hewitt, who's heading the Housing Committee, and I know that Terry plans to do some additional work on this topic in a future subcommittee meeting and hopefully in the full committee as well. So we look forward to that, and we appreciate your attention and hope that you'll be able to focus on more on this issue as we go forward. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Harry. I know that Councilmember Furman met with your tenant group in the recent weeks, and I hear that that was a productive meeting, and he has read the article in the Washington Post yesterday, and we'll be commenting in our newsletter tomorrow. So I would encourage you and everyone else to sign up for our newsletter at mattfurmanward3.com to learn more about his position on these vouchers and the overpayment issue, which we feel is very important, and other community updates.
And we have spoken to Matt and spoken to him offline as well, so we appreciate his engagement on this issue.
Thank you. And Christian, can you have Matt, does he, with his newsletters, does he post on social media as well? Like, so the mayor will post her newsletters on social media so you can like retweet those. Can Matt do that too?
Yes, Commissioner, we'll have them both on social media and on the neighborhood listservs.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? And thank you, Harry. Any other questions from the community? For Christian? Seeing none, thank you. And I see that you put the email address mattfurmanward3.com so people can join the newsletter and see what's going on with the office. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Be safe. Happy Mardi Gras. I see you out. Thank you. And it's 7:40, so I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is an update. It won't be from Lieutenant, who is now Captain Ronald Bridges. It will be Lieutenant Olivier. And I saw you earlier. I see you now. Spotlight. Welcome. You're on.
Okay, good evening, everyone. As I'm just filling in for Captain Bridges tonight. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. So I'm going to give you your stats for PSA 203. Doing a comparison from last year, 2022 to this year, 2023, a 30-day comparison, same time. So crime in PSA 203 actually went up by 2 crimes. Last year you had 40, this year you have 42. What's driving the crimes in 203 is the theft from autos. Last year you had 12. This year you had 18. That's the biggest shift in the crimes in the PSA. Motor vehicle theft also went up by 4. Property theft in the total went up from 37 to 41. And you only had 1 violent crime in the PSA. And that was a robbery that happened on the 25th. Other than that, for this week alone, which is included in those total stats that I gave you, for this past week, starting from the 12th of this month, you've had 5 theft from autos. So you can see where this is going. The theft from autos is driving the crime up in the PSA right now, and 4 property theft, which was shoplifting and stuff like that. Other than that, that's all we have. Do anyone have any questions?
I'll start with the commissioners, then the community. Commissioners, any questions? Questions from the community? Please raise your hand, or okay, I see Harry. You can unmute yourself, Harry.
Yeah, sorry, I can't find my virtual hand. A question about statistics. So we get reports very frequently from people about police cruisers out front of the Brandywine or in front of Connecticut House and other places, very, very frequently. But it doesn't seem to be reflected in the numbers. And I'm wondering what is the gap? And I assume it has to do with arrests or some further step that has to be taken, because what most alarms people to begin with is the fact that the police are showing up frequently to check out something that we don't know about exactly. How can you fill us in on that?
You weren't coming in clear. I heard something about the Brandywines and frequency of police visits there. The Brandywines.
Yes, let me see if I can try one more time. I'm sorry, I had a terrible time with my computer. I don't know why. We hear that the statistics show that in some cases, the amount of crime is not that bad, but people are seeing police cruisers outside their building and very, very frequently. And I'm wondering what explains the gap.
As in, there seems to be a gap in the numbers you're reporting, and if police cruisers or police are showing up to a building, maybe there was a call to the building, but you're not recording the call. So,
right. So sometimes this could be officers just on the beat. However, we also have incidental calls. Incidental calls is stuff like family reporting something that's not a crime. Loud noise calls, stuff that's, neighbors do stuff that's not a crime. You might see a frequency of police in that particular area, but not everything is reported as a crime or called in as a crime.
I see Amy has her. Thank you, officer. I see Amy has her hands up.
Yes, thank you for being here. I have a follow-up question to that. We appreciated the walk we had with MPD a week or two ago. I gave one of the Bridges was not able to come, nor Lieutenant Cullen. So I gave a copy of the warrant for the arrest of somebody who lives here at the Connecticut House and walks around with a knife threatening people, and nothing has been done. This person is still doing it. Why is it when there's a warrant out for somebody's arrest and they're showing threatening behavior, why aren't they picked up?
Okay, so my first thing is, I'll have to look into see if that warrant was even approved by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So it could still be, and I don't know if from what you're telling me, I don't know if it's an actual warrant or just an application for a warrant. So I'm
Yeah, I think, and that came up in the walk too, was some things are beyond the purview of MPD. So it goes to the AG's office, and there's this disconnect between like the rules for the AG's office, because that went back to crime, like, like petty theft at CVS in the area where someone might be arrested, but then they will actually say, that person arrested will say, well, I'm going to be out soon anyways, because the laws, it's not strict. So so there's a disconnect between like once someone is arrested and who actually implements kind of the rules or the impact on that person who's doing something in the community.
all right. So
And just to follow up, sir, I just don't understand why MPD would allow somebody to walk around the Connecticut house threatening people with a knife. I mean, that's not safe.
And this kind of goes into, so we're going to hear from Anthony Hall, who's with the Department of Behavioral Services. He's part of the community response team. So we'll hear from him. He might be able to respond now. I saw him on, or we could just maybe, Anthony, did you want to say something to that?
Sure. So in those instances,
so yeah, I added you to Spotlight. Sorry.
no worries. Absolutely. So in those instances, if there is a concern, of course, if there's a weapon involved in a threat, the first step is going to be calling MPD. Now, if you all are also concerned that the individual has a behavioral health condition, requesting a CIO, which is a crisis intervention officer, might be the best route to go, because in that instance, an assessment for likelihood for injury will be conducted, which is a different process than would be, and I don't want to step on MPD's toes, but it's a different process than the criminal proceedings that you might be referencing here. So we're kind of looking at parallel process if we believe there is the potential for injury, and at least coming from our wheelhouse, that there is concern about a behavioral health issue as well. So just to kind of clarify where there might be a different opportunity present for engagement.
Okay,
And how
my
does
last
contact-
comment on this is that I've looked at her arrest record, and before she was even approved for a voucher to move into Connecticut House, she threatened somebody in another neighborhood with a knife too. And I don't know why people are being placed who are a threat to other folks. It's just not fair. Thank you.
okay, so like Anthony said, MPD have CIO officers that respond as well, and if we need additional help, we'll call DBH to help people that's in crisis. When you say threats, that is a crime. But most often people's definition of a threat doesn't match up the statute of a threat. In our society today, people are allowed to walk around with knives. However, not open, not displaying it, not threatening anybody. These things are crime. So we have to balance, violating somebody's civil rights as opposed to the crime at hand.
Yes,
So-
sir, but she's threatened people with the knife, and she gets arrested, and then you release her the same day. And
We do,
so
we do-
I will be in touch. Thank you.
Who is it?
That's the U.S. Attorney's Office. If they go forward in pressing charges on this person, or the term for it is no paper in the person, basically releasing them without charge. All we do as police officers is just enforce the law. We will arrest the person, take them through the process, and the process goes down to the U.S. attorneys and the courthouse. Quick a quick synopsis on warrants. So when we do a warrant, when the officers get there, we have some crimes that are called probable cause misdemeanors, and they fall under certain criteria. And those are misdemeanors crime. Felony crimes are different. If we do a warrant, the officers come back here, knock out the warrant, forward it to the U.S. Attorney's office, and sometimes we can wait weeks to hear back from them. So it's not a fast process at all.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Terry Hewitt.
Thank you, ma'am. And I think Amy and anyone else who may have concern, what you're hearing is it's a 2 or 3 process system. MPD is doing all that they can. They're doing what they need to do, and it's not. It's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The other part of the sandwich is the U.S. Attorney General's office. What happens. They may come back, Amy. But it's about being diligent. It's about calling MPD. It's about anyone who has concerns. And the reason why I did raise my hand, the 2 things, requesting a CIO, that's new for me. And the reason why that's important is that the woman that you're speaking about, Amy, she often walks, and she did this past weekend, walk amongst speeding traffic on Connecticut Avenue at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And every time I want to call the police, or I prepared trying to figure out just to make certain she's safe. Oops, sorry. And more importantly, that some unsuspecting driver who's going down Connecticut Avenue who might hit her, harm her unintentionally. That sounds like I would have to call 911 and request assistance if I'm correct, Mr. Hall and Lieutenant Olivier, that I would be calling 911 and asking for CIO. Is that about right?
No, the average community member would just call 911 and say, hey, there's somebody playing in traffic, or whichever way they phrase it. We will come out there. We'll assess the situation. If we do find them playing in traffic or being a nuisance, the playing in traffic part sounds like it's some mental crisis stuff going on. So the CIO will come out there, do their evaluation. More than often, we'll do something called an emergency medical evaluation. It's called an F12, where a 72-hour hold on them. We in this lady case, it sounds like she has some mental issues going on. So we'll do that. We'll send her down to CPEP for evaluation. And a lot of times CPEP will release them within hours.
Right.
They don't actually hold them for 72 hours sometimes. It depends on how, they value the evaluation that they get at CPEP.
Okay, thank you. Because I know the police did show up. I couldn't see what they were doing, but she became quite belligerent. You could hear her yelling at the top of her lungs, and my windows were closed, and I could hear every word she was saying. But thank you so much.
And I guess the next question is, like, how do you call a CIO? And what actually does that stand for? Right. So crisis intervention officer, when the officer get on the scene, he will call for the CIO if he figures it's somebody with some mental issues, and not just a crime. So if it's a crime committed, of course they'll be arrested, but they'll still go for some mental evaluation if needed. So the officer will call for the CIO, and most of the time, if there's no crime committed, we call for DBH. Look into this person's mental background, see what we can do for them as far as help them get through the process. Okay, but community members can community members call CIOs?
Well, it's more
Anthony,
like they can call for help if they observe something like this lady running, playing through traffic, and say, yeah, this is happening, but more than likely the officer who's going to get on the scene and evaluate her anyway. You could say send a CIO, they might refer you to DBH, or they might send a DBH person if needed, but the dispatcher then more than likely will send us first to do our evaluation. The resources is needed for that particular situation.
Okay, Commissioner James Tender.
Is the community intervention officer different from, I guess my question to you, Chair David, is compared to what Mr. Hall is here for? So I guess with DBH, because it sounds like they're like similar but different things, and this may be a condition for Anthony to clarify as well, because it's also new for me as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to see like what is the best resource for something and having like a mental health issue. Because I think that's the case where, you know, like we want to help the community and we see people in crisis, but like what is the best way to respond to it? And, you know, yeah, but that may be a question for Anthony, like you maybe answered during like your portion as well too. So I'm trying to figure out like, it's like the CIO, how is it different from like, I guess the community response team too?
So the simplest way to define that would be CIOs are officers within the Metropolitan Police Department that undergo additional training hosted by DBH to help reinforce their awareness of behavioral health issues, engagement techniques, de-escalation techniques, and then the criteria for the FD12, just a different level of assessment and capacity. CRT is a fully civilian responder unit. So while they have capacity to come on scene, conduct evaluations, write the FD12 in the event that somebody is going for an involuntary hospitalization, we still be contacting MPD for the transport. The other difference would be if someone highlights the presence of a weapon, something that is emergent. The way I best describe it is our CRT comes in minivans and has to follow all the laws. So if time is of the essence, we still are going to request default to 911. Now the question about, patrol officer is likely going to be on scene faster than a CIO, but making the dispatcher aware if you happen to know somebody has a behavioral health situation going on. And I'm sure the lieutenant would reinforce, you know, don't tell the story as it's happening, what behaviors that you're witnessing, because there are trained professionals screening the calls and they'll know who to send on the scene, because an altered mental state could be behavioral health. It could be acute intoxication. It could be a medical crisis. And so just give the narrative as you're seeing it, not as you assume what's happening with a person, just so that everybody's kind of on the same page.
Thank you for
Okay,
that.
and
No, I was gonna say, I know I have you scheduled for later, Anthony, but you see how behavioral health is in tandem with MPD. And so, thank you.
I just want to hear all about you, Anthony. That's the whole point.
Commissioner Tenderick, sorry.
Oh, no. I don't want to hold up the space. So Anthony, I have a few questions for you that I will ask during your portion. So I'm good for now.
Okay. So Anthony, if you don't mind still staying on, but I needed you for this MPD part, which I don't want to hold you any longer, officer, because you are working, but does anyone else have a question for Officer Olivier? Seeing none, I will remove both of you from the spotlight, but Anthony still stay on. Thank you, Officer Olivier. Do you have any parting words?
Yes, all the stats that I read off to you, the public can get it from DC crime cards. And you can also set the filter to whatever, month, date you want. Yes, it's citywide. So, anyone can do it. Okay. And everybody, good evening.
Thank you. And it's just helpful to get the commentary from you. Because that's the part that's missing. So, we know there's things happening, but then hearing directly from MPD is helpful. So thank you so much. And
right.
Have a good evening. The next item on our agenda is DC Water.
Okay, I'm going to introduce the topic for this evening, and then DC Water will make a presentation. I would like to say that we've had numerous requests to DC Water over the last 2 months on information about the Soapstone Valley project, and they have been working very hard to respond to our questions. So this evening they will answer a few of them, and they have promised me that they will continue to provide information to me, which I will start passing out over the ANC website and also distributing to the community through some of the apartment managers that I have contacts for and other community contacts that I have with regard to this particular project, and distributing it to the ANC commissioners as well. One of the areas that people have talked about is the schedule, and I think that we will be given an update on the schedule this evening. There's been some questions about the CIPP process itself. How does it work? What are the steps to it? That probably will not be discussed tonight. We're looking for something probably sometime next week to get information. What the principal part of the presentation tonight will be looking at the specific areas where CIPP will be done in the Soapstone Valley. It turns out that there'll be 10 very discrete sites within the valley where the existing pipe will be relined. And last, I will say that we will be starting some Zoom meetings for particular areas within the Soapstone community so that sub-communities will have an opportunity to talk directly to DC Water staff about uniqueness in their particular communities and uniqueness with regard to operations in their particular locations. So with that, I'll turn it over to Emmanuel Briggs, who will take care of having either the presentation or the other people at DC Water. Emmanuel, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Baer. Actually, Jarrell is going to take over the slides as normal. Jarrell, if you can pull those slides up. But you basically nailed it. We're going to talk about primarily schedule updates. I do want to add one point of clarification before we go into the slides, because I need to do that. So while we will be showing you the locations specifically where the boiler truck will be, i.e. the CIPP locations, we just want to clarify that we will be relining pipes throughout the park. So we won't want to get that point confused. We will be still relining pipes throughout the park, but we do understand that one of the pressing inquiries or questions or concerns was to show us where the CIPP will be happening, show us where the boiler trucks will be placed. And so we do want to specify that information for you. As Commissioner Baer has mentioned. That said, Jarrell, you can take it over.
All right, thank you, Emmanuel. Good evening, commissioners. As I mentioned, I'll go through this presentation really briefly. We'll hear from our contractor who will explain some of these boiler truck locations by site. Okay, so to get started, we'll touch on the background briefly, go over some of the project benefits, and then we'll get into the construction update, CIPP timeline, and then open up for questions. As Emmanuel mentioned regarding the portion of the pipe that we'll be working on first, if you can see on the graphic, this main leg of pipe that's within the light green shaded area, those are the portions that we'll be completing first. So it's within the park, and that includes that's part of the 6,200 linear feet that's included in this project. For your reference, this just goes over the purpose of the project, which we all know. We want to mitigate the risk of sewage spills. I hear there's some concern with E. coli and other things in the water. We definitely want to ensure long-term use, recreational use of the park, protect the park trail, and also replace the invasive species with native species, stabilizing the creek channel through various methods with the stream restoration, and also reducing unwanted odors from sewers and manholes. Okay, here's a look at some of the work that's currently on hold until we're back out. Site 1 is currently 55% complete stream work, with stream work. That stream work will resume in March of this year. I'm trying to move this. Site 4 is currently 70% complete, and then that remaining stream work to be done on sites 4, 5, and 6 will be on hold until we complete the CIPP work in that area. Our permitted construction hours are still the same from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's Monday through Saturday. Some upcoming activities. We anticipate the CIPP work to begin at Site 6 the week of March 13th, 2023. And we will definitely touch bases with you all prior to that start. The bypass pumping at sites 4, 5, and 6 will continue. And as we get closer to March 13th for the CIPP work, you all may see some traffic control set up along Broad Branch Road. We'll also be continuing manhole inspections, and as well as beginning the air quality monitoring activities. That'll also start the week of March 13th. As work begins again, you may hear some noise coming from the site. Some of those activities causing the noise will be heavy rock delivery and then also hauling. Most of that work is taking place near Site 1 behind Park Van Ness. The stream bypass pumping, this will continue until April 2023. As well as the sewer bypass pumping that began back in October. That'll also continue until we are fully complete with sites 4, 5, and 6. Here's just another look at some of the properties that will be impacted by the sewer lateral work. And those are some various properties in the 2900 block, the 2900 to 2800 and the 3000 block of Audubon Terrace. And as Emmanuel mentioned, we will be contacting those folks when that work begins. We don't anticipate that work to begin for quite some time, maybe late summer. When work occurs on Lenore Lane, this is just a quick look at some of the what that work will look like. So basically we'll be lining that trunk sewer line there, capturing that flow, going into the sewer lateral. And with that, now we're getting into some of the locations for boiler trucks and the layout when we perform the CIPP work. So I'll hand it over to Kevin to walk you through these next few slides.
Yes, hi. So this is down at Broad Branch. So we'll be beginning. All of our operation will be within the park. We won't be having anything on Broad Branch itself. So any kind of traffic control you see would just be to allow our equipment to enter into our construction zone. We'd be shooting from our main for the manhole from our existing from one end to the other with our boiler truck and every other piece of our equipment off of the park, kind of shown right there for this example. This is one for Audubon. As we mentioned, this will be later on in our lining operation. We'll be lining everything from the bottom in the park throughout where the flow goes, and then any feeder line in the park, and our final would be this location on Audubon. Like we showed before, Lenore, this would be a perfect example of what we're having there. We'd be capturing any kind of the flow as it goes into the park and throughout. Same one for, again, over for Van Ness. Another one for Audubon, similar to last time, would be one of our last lining locations. Similar to before as well, another feeder line that goes into the park. So everything within the park trunk sewer will be lined before this occurs. This would be the final shot from that goes into the park that starts on Albemarle and then goes into the park itself. This is one that's directly in the park, fully in the park with nothing that has anything with our equipment that would be on public property. Similar, all within the park, nothing on public property. And same with this one. This is the last shot for our bypass setup currently on site 4.
All right, thanks, Kevin. And as you mentioned, it's the broad branch work, we would just require a minimal setup. And if we have any lane closures on Broad Branch Road, those closures will be within the permitted hours. And that'll be between 9:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. These are just some before and after photos from the site. On your left-hand side, that's a look at the outfall F117 before the project began. And this was an updated look at the new outfall that was installed. And then keep in mind, there's still some more stream work and grading that'll take place at this site as well. Here's just a before and after look at site 1 as well, just showing some of the progress that was made at this location. There's another look at site 4, some more before and after photos showing the installation of some of the rock walls and new steps leaving from out of the park. Here's our contact information. I think everyone has this. If you need to reach out for any questions or concerns, we'll gladly get back with you. And with that, I think I wanted to hand it over to Peter before we jump into the Q&A to give an update on the schedule.
Thank you, Joe. Hey, I just want to touch on the schedule. We do have an updated schedule, but since we are bringing on the inspectors, the WRF inspectors, we need to incorporate the activities into the schedule. So we will have to update that schedule. As indicated in the earlier slide, we were supposed to start the lining work this week. But, since wharf inspector need to get accommodation near Soapstone, we will actually start on the 13th. So we will update that schedule. We will give you we promise to get it to you before the next ANC meeting. So that's it. The one that we have now won't be that accurate because we're not starting this week. We're starting on the March 13th. So if you can just bear with us, we will get to that detailed schedule before the next ANC meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Now we'll open it up to any questions.
Yep, we'll go to commissioners first and then the community. Any commissioners with any questions? You can just speak. Seeing none, any questions from the community? Someone's hand, whose hand is raised? You can speak.
To John Vaudry.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask about what the delay has been, because wasn't the CIPP work supposed to begin in January? And now it's going to be March, and I used to get emails from my apartment building, but I haven't gotten any updates since November. So I'm just wondering what's happening.
Yeah, let me just, I will answer that question. As you know, we couldn't start the CIPP work. The delay was caused by the OEE they didn't approve the air quality monitoring plan until before Christmas. So once they approve it, WRF, who's going to be doing the monitoring for us, have to put a contract together. So we just have the kickoff meeting this month. So that's the delay. The crew need to come to DC. They're getting their accommodation, their flight. So that's the delay. But hopefully, we're supposed to start on March 13th.
I see Marjorie has her hands up, and then Commissioner Ryan. Marjorie?
Let's see. All right. Sorry. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Two questions. One is the refrigerator trucks. What will be the location of those refrigerator trucks? Because that is where, when the doors are open, as you know, that's where emissions, toxic emissions can occur. So can you tell us where those will be located, please? And then my second question is, you mentioned the stream work on site 1 is going to pick up. So that's near Albemarle and the outfall. Thank you for saving more trees. My understanding is that you still want to cut down or plan to cut down one other large tree. Can you please identify what that is and where it is? And will you be entering, where will you be entering? You said the heavy vehicles to bring in the rocks for rock delivery. Will those be entering on Albemarle or coming down Audubon?
Hey, Kevin, can you answer the?
Yeah, I can. So I guess first question, where we mark the boiler on each of those plans is also where the reefer trucks would be located as well.
Oh, the
So
exact
anywhere
same.
it does mark a boiler, we would be at that same manhole with a reefer truck.
Okay, and can you tell us the dates when the time gets closer of when those refrigerator trucks will arrive?
Yes, that schedule will be with DC Water, and they can share it along.
Okay, because that's very important. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have about 3 more minutes. I have Commissioner Ryan with a question.
Yeah, just a quick question. I was wondering where you're getting your advice from just on what native species to reintroduce and that sort of landscaping almost question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. So my question is just where is your advice, or what ideas you're getting from and from who about the native species that you're going to be using to repopulate soapstone?
Yeah, I think our director is online. Will?
Okay.
Hi, everybody. That is the primary source for that is the National Park Service. They have told us exactly what plants to plant. And the how much of each one is a function of how many trees we cut down, and then there's a ratio applied to how much is planted back. The Park Service is the short answer to the question.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Baer.
There was one other question before about the tree that you were proposing to cut down in site 1.
Yeah,
I'm going to get a little more specific. If it is going to be cut down, and we hope it isn't, but nonetheless, we would like to see you tag it so that we can see which tree it will be before you do anything to it, if you're going to do anything to it.
Yeah, we saw it. The reason we haven't tagged it yet, there's a tree that fell down that the contractor need to take. That need to cut off. That's why they haven't. So we don't want them to make 2 trips. So they will be tagging it. Kevin, what do you think they?
That should be tagged probably this week, if not next. I was on site just looking at it with the
company that would be doing it. And then additionally, the tree that is left would be an invasive tree. So it's part of the National Park Service's request that invasive trees get removed.
All right, it's now 8:20. I would like to move on with the next item of the agenda. Thank you so much, DC Water, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Jarrell, there's a note in the comment. Can you respond to that in the comments? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, appreciate you. The next item on our agenda is we'll bring in Anthony Hall back with the Department of Behavioral Health Community Response Team.
All right. Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, my name is Anthony Hall. I'm Director for Public Engagement for the department. And so under our purview, we operate the entire the public behavioral health system. And so in terms of direct care service for DBH, most people think about our crisis services model, and that is where CRT falls. CRT is the 24/7 direct care arm of the department. So they are responsible for community-based assessments, outreach. They conduct our cold emergency engagements. They are often the teams that respond to communities who are impacted by trauma, specifically individuals following shootings, things of that nature. So that team often goes out and provides supportive counseling and support services in that arena. They support our diversion programs with Office of Unified Communications and MPD. They're also responsible for all the ongoing support to all the other policing agencies that exist within the district. So at any point, be it Park Service, Metro, Amtrak, whomever requesting a consultation from behavioral health services, CRT is typically going to be the engagement arm that goes out and engages those individuals. The team makeup itself is often going to be one clinician, either paired with a peer being an individual with lived experience. That is most frequently the program profile. We also have community behavioral health specialists, often master's prepared individuals, but potentially not individually licensed. Those are going to be individuals still practicing under the license of one of the individually licensed staff members. CRT exists and operates 24/7. They have two remote sites, one being 35 K Street, the other being actually housed out of the Comprehensive Psychiatric Emergency Program, CPEP, which is at 1905 E Street Southeast. The city's just bisected so that they can increase their response times based on where a call is initiated from. That said, this is a fully civilian responder team. So what you can expect when you call in, anyone can call in a referral. The team is going to go ahead and go through the triage questions. Those are going to be questions intended to identify potentials for risk. Those are going to be where they're attempting to identify, is there a medical crisis where they need to send 911? Is there a weapon present? Is there danger present that would preclude them from being able to go out and be responders? They're also going to gather as much collateral information about a situation as possible. Anyone can call in. So we have individuals call for supportive counseling, some things handled telephonically, or they can go ahead and be on scene. Typically, if it's just going to be telephone counseling, they'll refer back to our access helpline, and I'll drop all these phone numbers and contact information in the chat when I finish up, just so everybody can know kind of the delineation. The access helpline is the city's 24/7 call center, so you can engage with a telephonic counselor at any point just by calling. Also, if someone wants to get connected with care, that would be the entity that's going to go ahead and link someone with, with a behavioral health service provider. The CRT primarily is known for the completion of emergency petitions, like the officer mentioned, the FD12. However, that doesn't really comprise most of the outcomes. More often than not, they're able to resolve situations and connect individuals with care without an involuntary hospitalization. If they do petition for an FD12, what will happen is they'll complete their assessment, request MPD transport because the team cannot transport somebody who's being involuntarily hospitalized. Then they'll follow along to one of our contract hospitals where we'll present, and the case is handed over to the accepting hospital. The accepting hospital then will conduct their own evaluation. So the FD12 gets you through the front door of the hospital. Then the hospital goes ahead and conducts the ongoing evaluation to determine if that individual continues to meet the legal threshold for an involuntary hospitalization. As a city, we focus in, as a practice model, we focus on least restrictive. So hospitalizing somebody involuntarily is kind of the path of last resort. As the teams attempt to engage, they're going to spend a lot more time doing supportive counseling, linkage, trying to put in place the pieces that will support somebody with their ongoing care. In addition to CRT, we have SOAR outreach. So a number of communities have concerns about individuals who appear to be under the influence, especially we all know there's an opioid epidemic. And so the state opioid response team grant affords us an entire outreach system kind of dedicated only to OUD, opioid use disorder. So they will go out, engage with individuals who might need treatment, who might need harm reduction support and strategies, and kind of be that ongoing bridge and link. And then at the point where they're ready to engage with support services, they get them through the front door and kind of walk them through so that getting treatment isn't such an unpleasant process. In addition, CRT is responsible for most of the partnership with our other government officials. So like I mentioned with MPD, they're going to be the co-responders. MPD will often call and make referrals to CARE once they've cleared a scene and know that there's no risk, but somebody might have some ongoing needs. If DHS, who is the government homeless service provider, identifies someone who might be a little bit outside of their scope with regard to behavioral health concerns, they're going to reach back and make a referral to CRT. The same holds true kind of across our service delivery system. So in a nutshell, that is the team. They are responsible for being the front door and the safety net more often than not. That said, it is still a really small team relative to the ask because they're responsible for supporting the whole city 24/7. And at present, I believe there are 61 members of the team. So one of the things that we do encourage people to understand is that they often operate a queue, and so they have to go just kind of case by case and as they clear cases, and it can vary how long it takes to finish out a case. That doesn't mean that they're not going to respond. It's just they're never going to respond as fast as some of our public safety partners, and I know that often gets lost or doesn't get translated really well in terms of what the expectation is when you call for a behavioral health response team. So that is CRT in a nutshell. I'm definitely happy to answer questions because more often than not, that's where the meat of conversation comes from.
Thank you so much for that. Do you all already have like relationships with building managers?
So we being the Department of Behavioral Health, not so much. They will call in referrals just like everybody else. Of course, there are buildings where we might get more referrals than other spaces, but it's not specific to like having a relationship with apartment managers.
And sorry, my last question is, do you know of any opiate addiction cases in this area? Only because I just haven't heard of it. So I just.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's not. You all don't typically have as high of a presence, but our contractor HIPS will often be in kind of the UDC area. There's just not where you're not getting as many reports of a lot of sharps on the ground, active overdoses, people needing the lock zone during walking around, where you get that in some other communities in the city.
Commissioner Sanderi.
Hey, so first of all, thank you so much, Mr. Hall, for coming to this. Like, I find this like really, really helpful. It's like news to me as well too. So it sounds like you're sort of on like a queue kind of first come first serve basis. What are some of the more like proactive things that you guys do to be able to help support communities? I'm trying to think of, like if there's ways in which the neighbors can be notified of like your hotline, or, like what to do if you see someone having like a mental health crisis, right? And like, they may not want to call 911 for various reasons. And so what are some more like proactive ways in which like you sort of help out like the communities?
Sure. So in terms of proactive engagements, one of the things that we often do is myself or a member of my team coming to meetings like this, coming to community events, really helping to spread the word regarding what services are available, when to access them, and not just into every member of the community. So the same as I'd be talking to you all, if there was somebody who I suspected potentially has the need for services, everybody gets kind of the same information, that same level of outreach. Now, we use a lot of heat mapping when we identify that there are patterns and trends, things that are emerging as hotspots. Hotspots just being areas where we are frequently getting calls for services, or one of our other partners is indicating that there has been a change. We will likely deploy more resources, because between crisis calls, the team engages in just proactive outreach. Right now, there is no real between crisis calls, and that's where it kind of defaults to some of our other outreach partners. We work really closely with DHS and their street outreach teams. Like I said, the OUD teams, while they have a very specific space, if they start to notice new trends or things that are just different in the community, they'll reach back and we'll redeploy my public engagement team. If communities are starting to ping, oh, hey, at 6 a.m., this is where we're seeing a whole lot of activity, but it dies off by 8:30, we'll go lay eyes on it and then kind of mobilize some of the other response units within the department, because while CRT is one very specific arm, there's a huge department, a lot of grantees, a lot of other services that we can move around. So those are kind of the other spaces that we inhabit that we can support. But we always identify kind of the first one. We like to be at everything communities are throwing, or as much as possible, and get the word out about who we are and what we have the capacity to do.
And just clarify, oftentimes, like when you go in the community, it's just like, I guess, like both people, you mentioned the clinician and like the peer with lived experience. Are they usually like a police officer, or is it just like are they usually like not like an MPD officer?
No, it is purely civilian response. The only time we'd be co-responding with MPD being they've called us out to the scene. There is an imminent risk situation. Maybe there was mention of some sort of weapon, which wouldn't preclude the team from engaging, but just for everybody's safety, we might need them present, or we've made the determination that we're going to involuntarily hospitalize someone, and we've requested them to support the transport side of it. So we rarely co-respond, and if we do, there's usually some specific risk factors identified that necessitated that, unless they were the ones that called us out in the first place.
Okay. Yeah, I was asking because like I know that I have like a neighbor who often will have like mental health crises, but like just like the sight of like MPD like just really triggers that person. And so just trying to find ways to de-escalate like that person without involving like MPD. So this is, I think what you're doing is really, really great. And I will contact you for more information.
Sounds good.
Any questions from the community? John?
So in an emergency situation, can we call CRT directly, or do we have to call 911?
No, CRT can be contacted directly. I think if you're defining emergency as someone's at imminent risk of harm, either to themselves or others, there's a weapon present, or there might be medical illness or complication going on, that's where we would say, go ahead and call 911 first, because we never want to delay an emergency service getting there.
Okay, but 24/7 we can call CRT to respond.
Correct.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
And what is the number for CRT?
I will drop it in the chat for you all.
Can you say it for the video as well?
Sure. 202-673-6495.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
John, did you have a follow-up question? No?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
Hi, thanks so much for being here. You guys have come here and been wonderful, and we really appreciate it. I personally, I'm a retired clinical social worker from the Veterans Administration, and so you guys have been so helpful. And I'm also the guardian of a sibling who's committed civilly to St. E's, so I'm very aware, very familiar with your work, and it's very good. Two questions. Who would a building get Narcan to reverse an overdose? I know they're putting them in schools now. Is it possible, who in the city could provide those to apartment buildings to reverse an overdose? That's my first question.
Sure. So any individual can just go to our the DBH Live Long DC campaign and request their own Narcan. If you all wanted to get it established for a building, that would need to go through, the point of contact's name is Sari Frankel. And again, I can facilitate connection at any point. I'll drop my own contact information in the chat for you all. But she would, if there was a desire to have that level of Narcan distribution, she'd be the point of contact for that because she's the state authority for naloxone.
Okay. And my second question is, there are individuals being placed who are not able to live independently. When I worked with the VA, one of the things I did was I went into group homes and apartments to make sure folks were taking their medicine and needed help. Are you all involved at all with DBH about placement of individuals who might need more care than they can get once a week from somebody checking on them, or are you involved at all in the placement of folks who might have difficulty living independently without supervision?
So if you're looking, so there are a number of different placements, as I think people know. If we are looking at individuals who have received a DCHA voucher for placement, DBH does not factor into that. That is an entirely separate system. So you'd be looking at DCHA and DHS, because I know there's also some thought regarding individuals coming from the homeless services system who have been placed, especially with the city being a housing first model because it's the national best practice. And the other part being the determination for capacity to live in the community, that would be an entirely separate evaluation from a person having been waitlisted and placed. So I know often we're seen as running kind of in lockstep with that, but there are two entirely separate entities and processes that happen with housing placement.
So who from DBH is involved with housing placement?
DBH isn't involved with housing placement. That's DHS and DCHA. Like with DBH placement, it would be if someone was, say, coming out of one of our, coming out of the state hospital, then you'd probably look at that. Now, what often happens is someone might also have a case manager through one of our core service agencies, CSAs being the 50 contracted vendors who provide behavioral health services to those in the public health system. They might be supporting the lease up process and supporting their client in that, but they're not actually a part of the lease up, the voucher placement, the voucher acquisition or anything like that.
And lastly, I promise, if we were to suggest that DBH be involved with the other city agencies in helping assess whether somebody is appropriate to live independently, who would we make that suggestion to?
That I actually don't have an answer to, so I would suggest you probably want to move that towards your council member staff potentially, because there's a lot that would go into an ask like that, including the legal rights of the individuals who are receiving vouchers, because all behavioral health services are voluntary. To make placement contingent on receiving a medical service is illegal. And so, I think that would be a really interesting ask. Like, I definitely understand where it's coming from, but there are a lot of moving systems that are involved with this. It's not a straight and linear process at all. And nor is every voucher recipient an individual in need of behavioral health care. So there's a lot to kind of filter through in that space.
Yeah, I'm just looking out for their well-being and those that they're living with. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Anthony, so I met Anthony Hall at the mayor had an event with all the ANC commissioners, with all the services that the city provides, and mayor, and Anthony just had a table. And I just thought, oh, I've never heard of you. This would be perfect, because for the last 2 years, we've been, the ANC3F have been inviting government agencies to try to figure out, we've heard from the community about specifically housing vouchers. So we've been looking at housing, how do you provide support services? And there's so many different entities. And it seems really difficult because you cannot, a lot of perspective, how you approach the situation is illegal, right? So being able to get to know how many people live in a building, to know who has services, to, you know, a lot of that is illegal information. So so with CRT, it's providing a service without having to know exactly who, what, when, how, but it's, you know, having that service in the community so that somebody could be helped. But we've been trying to find ways to directly help people, and that goes to our housing committee, which, you know, now what we never have done is talk to the building managers and who they have been speaking with to help with issues happening in buildings, and where assistance they may need in terms of housing, you know, in terms of social services, or the person who's receiving services. The building manager will probably know that, not a regular resident. So that's where we're trying to make some progress in that way, because it's really difficult to just request information. It's really difficult to just request information and focus specifically on people who may just have housing assistance, because someone who may not be getting housing assistance may also be getting some other type of social services. Commissioner Terry Hewitt.
Oh, pardon. Actually, I was noting Anthony's 888 number, which was essential. But what you're saying is so important and vital. And I think that because having had these conversations with property managers enlightened me how much they want and did not know how to seek help. So this is phenomenal information. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. So we appreciate you being here, Anthony, on a Tuesday evening, Mardi Gras. You could be elsewhere. I just want to note the hotline number. So your email, just because this video is going to be on YouTube. So your Anthony, ANTHONY.HALL@dc.gov. And then the DC Access Hotline is 1-888-793-4357, which is a 24/7 telephone support system. Anything you want to leave on?
Just really wanted to share, very sincerely meant, anytime you all have events or just want additional information, please feel free. There are so many different divisions, and we really do like to make sure that the experts are in the room for conversation. So as these go, feel free to reach out. And if I'm not the right person, I'll connect you with the right person.
Okay, and then, sorry, I just saw Commissioner Sanderick has.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna quickly ask, with the DC Access Helpline, does that help people with given access to different departments and resources in the area specifically?
So Access Helpline would assist with linkage to members of our provider network. They also are clinicians, so they provide telephonic counseling and supports. So then that might mean helping you connect with a provider who's within your own insurance network, kind of after we stabilize whatever led you to that initial call. Information regarding services, that's kind of where everything sits. And then there's a more administrative arm, which deals in as well as those linkages, helping people get to like STD treatment and getting the authorizations for care, but that doesn't really impact those people calling, but that's just kind of the other side of what happens with AHL. They're also the 911 diversion support. So if an individual calls 911, meets specific criteria, they're then transferred over. Instead of staying in the 911 queue, they get this, and they are the 988 call center for the city.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Have a good evening.
Y'all take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now moving on to the next item of the agenda is items that we'll be voting on, and Commissioner Courtney Carlson will kick us off with the BZA permit.
I'd like to introduce Marty Sullivan and Eric Carl to discuss the BZA exception at 5042 Nebraska. I see Eric.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, hi.
Carl Burke.
Hi, I'm Marty Sullivan. I'm zoning counsel for Jennifer and Randeep, owners of 5042 Nebraska Avenue. And if I could share my screen, and Eric Carl is the architect. So I was going to share.
Eric Carl, Running Dog Architects.
Carl does not have his video on, so I cannot add spotlight. But he's here.
I can see
He
him.
does. He does.
Oh,
I got my video on.
Okay, thank you. Somebody help me. Oh, okay. Eric called. I was looking for the wrong person. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So if I could share, okay, I see
Yes.
I have that. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to start with a photo. So first of all, we're going to BZA for relief from lot occupancy and from the 10-foot rule. This is the property here in the center. Let me start with this to show a map. This is Connecticut Avenue here in Nebraska. It's a very narrow lot, and it was built as a set of three. The two on the sides are semi-detached, and then this is their row house in the middle. Because we're in the R2 zone and it's not a row house zone, we need the relief for the lot occupancy and for the 10-foot rule. If we were in R3, the row house district, we wouldn't need relief for lot occupancy. We'd still need 10-foot rule relief. There's also one thing I'd like to add, if I could. We haven't officially added this, but I'm going to add side yard relief to this, and it doesn't change the project and it doesn't change how they evaluate it. It just adds another area of relief. And the reason why, the previous zoning administrator made a determination from a similar house on this block stating that row houses in the R2 zone do not need side yard relief if they want to extend back as a row house. And we have a new zoning administrator. I don't know if he's going to have a different determination, but the Office of Planning has raised the issue. And I just got an email from them today, from Crystal Myers at OP, saying that they think we should ask for side yard relief. So they don't agree with Matt LeGrant, the former zoning administrator, or me. And so I think, out of abundance of caution, I should add that relief. And so I intend to do that tomorrow. And I wanted to let the ANC know about that. Because otherwise in the R2 zone, you need at least one 8-foot side yard.
Have the other houses on the block who've done similar projects also had side yard relief based on the previous zoning administrator?
I believe that Eric, are you familiar with one of those projects?
Yeah, I worked on another row house just up the street. I'm blanking on the exact address of it, but it was I think it was this grouping of units that was 4 of those sets of 3 up the way. And the reality was we presented it to Matt LeGrant and discussed it as saying, look, it's a non-conforming lot within this zoning district. And for that reason, it's a row home in a zoning group that calls for purely semi-detached and detached houses. So there are limitations to that. And Matt saw that as being allowable. So he allowed us to not have the side yard. He gave us the side yard relief on that because you're hemmed in a non-conforming zone. So, and that was for I won't say, but again, I mean, we had no problems with that. It was presented at zoning. It was noted in the comments when we had it, the first set of comments back on that project when we'd submitted for permit, and we took that to Matt LeGrant, and he said that the side yard relief would be waived.
Thank you.
That documentation had been prepared and given to Marty, so all of that is within the realm of supporting this project.
Yeah, and I surprised Eric with this comment about that we're going to ask for the side yard relief, because we had talked about this, but I just got an email from Crystal about 3 hours ago saying that they're not sure that they agree with Matt LeGrant's decision previously and that we might need the relief. So I want to ask for the relief. So here's the view from the front. There it is on the right. I think I'm there. And then here's from the back. So this is the alley, and this is the neighboring property to the north. And then I'll turn it over to Eric to discuss the plans, but I do want to note that we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 letters of support from neighbors, including both of the adjacent neighbors on this in this threesome here.
What does the
And the side yard issue, I'm so sorry, the side yard issue wouldn't, that's what I'm most interested in, because just would the side yard issue affect the neighbor support? Because I think that's really important.
Well, it won't change the project. I don't know that they were that interested in what kind of support or what exact relief we're asking for. Anyway, we're asking for lot occupancy relief, which has to do with the lot coverage. We're asking for 44%. The max is 40%. Between 40 and 50%, we can ask for a special exception. But the other thing we're asking for is 10-foot rule relief, which does involve the addition going back to a certain distance. So, and they know that there's no side yard being provided. So I'm assuming that they would, but we can have Jennifer and Randy reach out to them as well. Because I know this is, I just found this out today, and I'd love it if Mamadou, the new zoning administrator, would say that he agrees with Matt LeGrand's decision and then we don't need the relief, because in the end he makes the call, but we haven't had time. OP raised the issue with me today, and I haven't had time to go back to Mamadou and ask him if he agrees, but he's been pretty responsive lately, so maybe we'll get an answer quickly. But I don't want to wait to apply just because I want to give the Office of Planning time to include that in their report as well.
The only reason I bring it up is because I thought that the fact that the neighbors are also supportive and some of them have done similar projects is very relevant. And if anything was changing that might affect that, I wanted to make sure if we were going to vote on that would be, made sure that they know. But it doesn't sound like that is going to affect what they're going to see.
No, it doesn't change anything anything with the plans. You're welcome. So Eric, do you want to?
Yeah. Marty, are you sharing everything then?
Yeah, I'll share since I'm already sharing here, and just let me know what you'd like to see first.
I'll start with the plan there, and you can see the DC plat relative to the adjacent properties. So where we have the issue is really the property to the east, where the arrow is. That's where we're trying to get, that's where the 10-foot rule really comes into play, because the property to the west is actually a couple of feet back from where we'd go. So we wouldn't be in violation of the 10-foot rule on that side. We're just in violation of the 10-foot rule on the east side. It's a tough rule in that DC says it's 20 feet from the rear yard setback, except the 10-foot rule. So it's such a long, narrow, deep lot that has produced this issue. Go to the plans. It is really an addition on 2 floors. We are not excavating or do anything for the basement, but it's to provide really family room space in the back of the house, mudroom and access point at the back of the house, because they come in and park from that alleyway, and then an extension for the primary bedroom on the upstairs floor. So I mean, there's nothing grand about it. It's just trying to create a more livable row house in this situation. Roof plan there, somewhat nondescript. The elevations, the rear elevation was a bit undefined at the time as we were working through some materials and whatnot. So the front facade is being reworked so that we can divide the front facade up so that you've got 2 bedrooms at front and a primary suite in the rear. So you're seeing the rear facade with a little deck that's tucked away. So we don't actually build out the entire rear facade to that line either. That one portion of it adjacent to it is tucked back in a way, but with a privacy wall right there. And then you can go to the next slide, the sections. So there's the section of it. So again, it's really going to be posts supporting the 2-story addition on the rear. And it's family room and primary bedroom. I mean, they don't want to leave the city. They don't want to leave the street. They love where they're at. And we're doing everything we can to try to get them there. And they didn't want to excavate and create land issues and civil issues and to anything to that extent. So it's a 2-story addition to make this house a more livable house.
And again, Eric, this has been done, similar projects have been done on many of the houses on that strip.
Yeah, Marty, can you go back?
I happen to know a lot of the neighbors on that block, so I just wanted to let the other commissioners know that there's a lot of similar work.
Yeah, my dear friends, Laura and Maurice Orner.
Also my dear friends.
Yeah, I designed their house and came out quite nice. And we were granted the side yard relief. So again, I mean, it's a tough situation. It caught us, admittedly, at that time, it caught us off guard. We did not recognize the side yard setback as an issue. We did discuss it with Matt LeGrant at the time, and we have the letter. I believe it was actually provided as part of the evidence in this or what have you, that it's a non-conforming lot. So in the end, you've got a row house lot in a non-row house zoning condition. So that part just makes it difficult. If they had said and row house, as part of the zone, it'd be a non-issue. The only thing that would be an issue is the 10-foot rule, because in theory, the lot coverage would be up to 60%. There'd be no side yard setback or anything to that effect. So, and again, they've got the support from their neighbors, their most immediate neighbors, as well as others. So.
There's a question in the chat of how many neighbor support letters. I think there were at least 5. Is that right?
Yeah, we had 5. We have the 2 immediate neighbors plus 5 more. 50-12, 50-32, 50-18, 50-26, 50-10, and then the 2 abutting.
It's a very close-knit collegial block.
Yes.
Any questions?
Claudette, this is my first time. Can you help? Can you help guide us through the next steps of how we move forward?
Yeah. Any questions from commissioners and the community? And then if not, then you can motion to vote. But let's get any questions from the community. If there are any questions, are there any questions from the community? Seeing none. Can I get a motion to approve the special exception to construct rear addition to this attached story house at 5042 Nebraska Avenue, including a side yard relief?
I motion.
Courtney, is that right, Courtney?
Yes, yes. Okay. I was wondering if I had to repeat that over again. I was going to look at my notes.
No. You can second.
Ryan, secretary. Second.
I'm if I can.
So who second? So Terry motion gave them. Well, Terry gave the motion. Courtney second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? And the motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item of our agenda is, let me remove spotlight, is Commissioner James Sanderick would take the lead on this. And we've got our Ward 3 School Board of Education representative here, Mr. Eric Goulet. So James.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. So we have a resolution regarding opportunity to basically acquire the Whittle School campus at 3400 International Drive. This has been something that has been in our neighborhood for a while, and so there's been talks about what is sort of the future of this building. And so we're going to have a brief introduction with Mr. Goulet.
Much, Commissioner Tanderick, and thank you all to the commissioners for having me here tonight. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm just so excited to be able to speak in support of the Whittle School resolution. I was just over at the National Presbyterian Church, and 3A just adopted one as well, which brings us up to a total of 4 of the 7 ANC commissions that have approved Whittle resolutions, and this would be number 5. So I'm just really thankful that this is on the agenda tonight and grateful for the time to speak here in support of it. I mean, the reason that this is so important is just, it's simple, is that Ward 3 parents identify school overcrowding as their top concern. And this is something that's going to be extremely important for first addressing the issues at the middle school level. Right now, Alice Steele Middle School experiences tremendous overcrowding issues. This is going to be a once in a generation opportunity to be able to get a building that is a ready-made school, that's public transit accessible, and is right next to our state university with UDC right next door for all sorts of workforce development partnerships. I also think it's a great site for pre-K. Right now, Ward 3 is the only place where we don't have pre-K 3 in any of our elementary schools in the ward. And pre-K 4, only about 40% of the kids are able to go via the lottery. So it's just a great opportunity. It's going to be something where I think we can even get a very good deal on the property, because right now it's in bankruptcy court. And the fact that it's ready-made for a school means that DC could step in and probably get this at a price that others wouldn't be willing to pay for it, because a developer would either have to tear the property down or retrofit it to change it to a use other than a public education use. And they'd probably need to work with the federal government to get approval of that. I think we're well positioned to work with the feds to be able, who own the land right now, to be able to say, we'll maintain this for educational purposes, get a great deal on a long-term lease for the site, possibly even a 99-year lease, and then be able to have a public school here that meets those school capacity needs that Ward 3 desperately desires. So I'm glad to take questions about this or any other topics that are education related. And I'm just really grateful for you all having me on tonight. And I'm willing to stay as long as you have questions. So thank you so much.
Any questions, comments from the commissioners? Any questions? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Terry Hewitt.
The only, I don't have a question, but I would say as a comment that it would be, as a parent and as someone who is taught in DC public schools, and I taught 156 kids every day. So, I mean, the classrooms are tight. I still talk to teachers who teach about the same number of students a day. So this would be phenomenal just for our neighborhood. I think it would just be a great benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hewitt. And I should have mentioned also, I failed to mention this, that we also, in addition to those commissions endorsing this, Councilmember Fruman also put this in his budget letter that he sent to Mayor Bowser, urging her to support the purchase of the Whittle School by DC. So we've got great momentum on this, and thank you again.
Any comments from the community or questions from the community? Seeing none. James, did you want to talk about the resolution?
Oh, yeah, sure. Do you want me just to show it briefly?
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah. Yep, of course, yeah. So this is just the resolution kind of right here. You guys can see it right now. Yeah, just basically just gives like the background is that it is closed, and some arguments that we're sort of talking about, some of the reasons why it could be beneficial to have it be like a new school in the area. And I think the important thing is that we're requesting that DCPS investigates the opportunity to lease or purchase the Intelsat building, which is the former Whittle School building in itself. So this is just the resolution as it's on here currently. And I can zoom out like a little bit if I can, yeah. Make sure everyone can see most of it and whatnot too.
Are there any controversies regarding the Whittle School? Any opposition? Have you heard anything, Eric, for reasons why people didn't want? Just
I've only had questions, no real concerns. I had some questions today about how this would, impact property values, and I think it will be a net plus, to be honest. Like having a great public school nearby for the community to walk to be able to have pre-K there or bike to is just a tremendous amenity and usually raises property values. So I think that that's a great thing. And I think of all the uses, this will probably be the use that reduces traffic the most. It will be something where you have a lot of parents who are choosing to just walk or bike to the school with their children. You'll have a situation where it's right next to UDC. So if we partner with the community college on workforce development programs, it'll be right next door and it's right off a metro. So I think of all the uses we have for this site, this will be the one that's the most positive for issues of traffic and for issues of making sure that there's no disruption to the neighboring community. So I think it's a win-win, and hopefully the mayor will explore it and then choose to take advantage of this opportunity.
thank you, Eric. Kathy.
Yes. Eric. Oops. I think.
You might be.
Kathy, do you want to write your question in the chat?
Yes.
We can read it.
Yeah. We have a.
I think that you can hear me actually
Okay.
now.
Yes.
I had two devices on, sorry about that. Eric, it's good to see you here, and I think that it would be just wonderful if DC could get a hold of this property and use it for good purpose. Is it your concept that the entire site, it's a very big site, the building, takes up a portion of it. Is it your concept or that of others that the entire site would be used for educational purposes? Or are you thinking that, as I recall, I think that Matt's budget idea included possibly some utilization maybe for affordable housing or something else? What are your thoughts about that? And does anything have to be gelled before the city moves on this? How firm a vision for the future does there have to be?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think the city needs to work with the bankruptcy court, with it being in bankruptcy right now. So that provides us, I think, with a great opportunity to get in and get this well below the assessed value. It was assessed, I think, around just south of $100 million. I think we can get it for less than that in bankruptcy because I think it currently is built out for a school. I mean, I would envision educational uses to be the most ideal use of the site based on how it is designed and built right now. Always open to discussing other ideas, but I think as we look to grow in Ward 3, we've talked about the Rock Creek West strategy for adding new housing to the ward. I think this is a site that, since it's already built out as a school, should be dedicated to educational use, because in order to add residents to the ward, we need to add school capacity. And right now our schools are all overcrowded in every area of the ward. No elementary school, as we mentioned, has any pre-K 3. We only have half of our pre-K students in pre-K 4. So I think the space, maybe not right away, but 5-10 years down the road, will be needed for educational space, either for our DC public schools or for UDC, for workforce development opportunities there that partner with our public education system. So my focus would be on school issues, but as I keep an open mind to listen to other ideas. I think that's the best and highest use of this site is educational purposes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
There's a question in the chat: would DCPS abandon MacArthur and use Whittle instead for high school?
I answered that question already in the chat just right now. Yeah. I would be like most likely not, because like they already have like plans, they already have budgeting for it. They already have like staffing for it already though. So like the idea that they would abandon it for Whittle, like that would most likely be like not the case. And it's the case where, if this building becomes like a new DCPS school, it's a question of like whether it be like a middle school or a high school. And so like I think those ensuing conversations would be like further down the line. But I think with like the MacArthur school, like that is for sure going to be like a reality.
Excuse me, Eric, can I ask you though, aren't they still working out a lot of issues with transportation and the MacArthur School, things that actually aren't quite finished yet?
Yeah, I mean, we're closely looking at the transportation issues. I received probably half a dozen emails from parents that within the John Eaton boundary that were concerned about transit access issues there. I mean, there's some very real issues with the MacArthur site. I know there's proposals that are being talked about to try to work through those issues. I mean, I think one great thing about the Whittle School is if for whatever reason they go a different path on MacArthur, because the viability becomes a concern, is then we have a backup site that would be available that would be fantastic for a high school, right near that site for our Ward 3 high school students. I don't think the plan, as Commissioner Tanderick mentioned, is to, abandon Whittle in favor or abandon MacArthur in favor of Whittle. I think the focus would be on a middle school site first, and I'll give the chair of our Ward 3 Dems credit for this. Bo Finley is the first one to mention, the idea of using this site for middle school. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity to be able to even get that in place by the next school year. And then the pre-K need is immediate as well. So as soon as we can build that out, we'd love to do that. And I'd love to set up a tour with the deputy mayor's office. I know they've looked at the site, invite the ANC out to that. I'm still have not heard back yet on when that's going to take place, but I would like to get a tour set up where we all can go see the site and then see what uses we think would be best for it.
Thank you for that. Any more questions from the community? Any more questions from commissioners?
Eric, what do you see as the time? You said there's momentum for it, but what does momentum mean within DC government in a bankruptcy court? You might not be able to answer this question, but how do you foresee this playing out in terms of a timeline?
Well, and I've got a helicopter going above my house, so I apologize if there's any noise problems. I mean, ideally, the reason we're trying to move aggressively on this right now is because we don't want to miss a once in a generation opportunity. And I think the time to do it is in this budget. It would definitely encourage the mayor within the capital budget for DC this year to purchase this site, to set aside money to go negotiate with the bankruptcy court to buy this site. I mean, there's opportunities to do it outside of the budget cycle through what's called the contingency cash reserve in DC. But I think the time to do it is right now. The need is apparent that we need more space, particularly at the middle school level in Ward 3 and at the pre-K level. And you're passing up on an opportunity, for an educational campus right near our state school that we want to, be able to utilize would be a lost opportunity. So to answer the question, my hope would be this fiscal year. It's going to be in the budget letter that I send to the mayor tomorrow. And, I was excited to see Councilmember Fruman put it in his budget letter as well. And I think we will have 5 ANC resolutions, if all goes well, with this one tonight, that will add great weight times 5 to the issue, and hopefully 7 by the time the mayor will consider the budget. So that's our hope, that it's in the budget when it comes to the council. If it's not, I certainly plan to go try to make the case to the council that this is something that needs to be added to the budget. I think it's just an opportunity that's too good to pass up.
Thanks for that. Any more questions from commissioners? Any questions from the community? How will it impact traffic? Is a question in the chat.
It's a great question. I think of all the uses of the school that have been talked about, this would be the one that would impact traffic the least. I think it would be certainly the best use of the site to minimize any traffic issues for the community. And, that's why I haven't supported the idea of putting a charter school at this site, because I think that would then draw, more people driving from across the city. I think the use for it should be for a DC public school. And I think particularly if it's next to the university, that will also minimize traffic issues, because residents coming in for those workforce development opportunities with the university will be taking Metro. Or people who would be going to UDC anyway. So this site will be used for something, and of all the uses that it could be used for, I think this one has the smallest traffic footprint on the neighborhood of any of the proposed uses that I've heard. So that's why I think another reason why we should proceed with it.
Any more questions from the community? Any more questions from commissioners? Are we ready for a vote? Is there a motion on the floor? Can someone make one?
Yep. I motion to approve the resolution regarding opportunity to acquire the Whittle School campus at 3400 International Drive.
I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstentions, and the motion passes. Eric, there's a question in the chat. If you don't mind answering in the chat.
Yes. I saw that one. I honestly don't know the answer to that. That would probably be a question for transportation experts about another metro elevator being added. We can look into it. I don't know the answer. I apologize. I'm not sure about that one.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Eric. Any parting words?
Well, just that we're working hard on the issue of the school reductions. I've received, I think, well over 1,000 emails. It was close to 1,200 emails from persons concerned about the cuts at the schools, the 5.26% cut that many of our public schools received on the initial budgets. I'm certainly recommending in the budget letter that those be reversed. I know the mayor increased the funding formula by 5.05%. I think the number needs to actually be the 5.26% higher. We need to be increasing it by 10.31%. That's what I'm going to be recommending in the upcoming budget letter because of the increases we've seen to our contracts, which are a good thing. We were 3 years in arrears with our public school teachers. We approved 4-year contracts, both with our DC public school teachers and our principals unions. So the principals received a 12.5% pay raise. The teachers received a 12% pay raise, but they would then be entitled to another raise that they would negotiate for this year. So it could be upwards of about a 16% increase for DC public school teachers. So keeping the increase around 10.3% plus the money that we got from the workforce investment account is going to be absolutely critical so that our schools don't see a reduction in purchasing power for the upcoming school year. And that's a deep concern that parents have expressed. I've been working with the LSATs, hearing concerns about cuts of anywhere from 6 to 10 staff, teaching staff and other staff at the schools based upon these 5% cuts that are being randomly assigned to our local Ward 3 schools. And it's been 7 of the 10 schools have been assigned this random amount. And it's deeply concerning. We're going to certainly request that be reversed when the mayor submits the budget on March 22nd. And then if it's not, we'll work with the council to see what can be done to change that.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you all for having me tonight. I really appreciate your leadership on this, and I appreciate you having me. I'll come back whenever you tell me you want me here.
And your contact in case anyone wants to just reach out to you.
Yes, it's Eric, ERIC, .goulet@dc.gov, and I'll put it right in the chat too.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.
You as well.
Thank you. And we're at the end of our meeting. And so I just want to thank everyone thank the commissioners for all your work on committees and in your S&Ds. Thank you. And thank everyone, all our community leaders and all of you, our constituents who join the meetings, participate. Thank you. Keep reaching out to us. We'll be preparing for next month and discussing what would be on the agenda for next month. So please feel free to reach out to any of us. And our emails are easy. You reach one of us, you can get all of us. We help each other out. Can I get a motion to end the meeting?
Motion to adjourn our meeting.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And the motion passes. Good night, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. See you next month, March 21st.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
You
Good night, everyone.